You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a previously aired live video webcast.
With all the D&D
all
stuff.
right, we are live. Yay. Okay. Hi guys. I'm Tara. This is my YouTube channel. I don't know. It's a Geek Saga. YouTube is weird, and this channel is still under like my old YouTube username, no matter how many times I've tried to change it. So if you're seeing it as Pirate Tara, that's me too from back in the day. But yeah, so I'm Tara, and I'm here with my lovely friends Bekah, Chloe, and Izzy. And this webcast is called Con-Versation or A Conversation because we're talking about cons at conventions and not conventions like conventional stuff, but like Comic-Cons, which that term Comic-Con is kind of so narrow compared to like the whole world of conventions these days, but yeah. So as a start, I've been attending conventions since 2010. I have no idea how many I've attended, but it's definitely been more than, oh gosh, it's been 7 years. So I would say I've probably attended something like 60 or 70 conventions over the years. So, and everything from, Dragon Con, San Diego Comic-Con, and a ton of other, like little conventions. Of course, I run 2 conventions. So, yeah, I think I'm pretty well-versed in convention life. Probably too well-versed. I definitely spend too much money on this nonsense, but I really love it. It's I used to travel a lot, and now my travel has kind of been relegated to conventions. And for right now, I'm pretty okay with that, mostly because I do write and cosplay and stuff, and conventions help me get my name out there. So that's me. And if you guys want to go, I've been introducing you by like alphabetical order because it's easiest. So if you want to say who you are, first Bekah, then Chloe, then Izzy, I guess, and just kind of talk, say who you are and just a little bit about how you got started with conventions or whatever, and then we'll kind of dive into everything.
Okay, well, I guess I'm next then because I'm a B. I'm Bekah. My best friend had done cons for a really long time, and I didn't know anything about them, and so I met Tara in the summer of 2014, yeah. And so she's like, oh, I do cons, I'm going to Dragon Con. And I was like, oh, whatever. And then she's like, okay, listen, we're going to Con-Nuga. And I was like, what's that? And so I did. So Tara got me into cons, and so I blame her for all of my con things. But I'm fairly new to cons. I've only been doing them since my first one was in 2015. That was Con-Nuga 2015. But I do mostly local cons. I don't really travel a whole lot. I do Ice and Fire, Dragon Con. I haven't been to any really big ones. I went to MegaCon.
MegaCon's good.
Yeah, but I don't know. I like Dragon Con better than MegaCon. But I cosplay and I write, and I work with Tara at her Saga Events Planning Company. And yeah, I don't really have a lot to say about things. I like to I'm still new with the cosplay thing, but I really love it. It's giving me a chance to express myself because I've been in a kind of a slump lately. So it's really nice to get a chance to dress up and get out of my head. Okay, Chloe, you're next.
Cool. Woo. Hi, I'm Chloe. I've been cosplaying. I feel old. I've been cosplaying since 2007. My first convention was JFAX in 2007, and I used to go to a lot more conventions. I've kind of pulled back now, but I've been cosplaying and going to all Midwest conventions. I used to go probably to 10 a year, maybe around 10 to 12 a year, but now I'm only at about 3 or 4 cons. I've been to a lot of the big Comic Cons, C2E2, PAX, Dragon Con, MagFest. I go to MagFest every single year. Pretty much any of the Midwest cons I've been to. And I have had a cosplay page for a couple years, so that's fun. That's your girl. And that's about it.
Oh boy. Okay. All right. I'm Izzy, and I'm a cosplayer too, as well, a con attender. My first convention happened to be in 2007. I only went for like a couple hours each day because I was still like in high school at that point. So like my mom was kind of like, hey, it's time to come home and stuff like that. So officially I didn't actually stay for a convention weekend until 2009 officially, but this will be my 10th year attending a convention. I can't believe it's going on the 10th year at this point, but I mostly stick to Midwest conventions, which are the ones like in the Ohio, Chicago, and Michigan area. And, you know, so far, the farthest con I've gone for is Dragon Con, which was the furthest one I've ever gone to. And I used to attend like 3 or 4 conventions. Now I'm just kind of like going down to 2 now, a year now. And that's who I am. I also cosplay. I have a cosplay page called Just Izzy because I am just Izzy. I'm not special.
Aww.
Yeah,
I love Izzy.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. If you are watching this, be it live or later, my thing is down at the bottom of the screen. A Geek Saga. That's my Twitter and Tumblr and Instagram, and that's how you can find me on Facebook. Bekah is Starshine on Fire on Twitter and Starbuddy Cosplay on Facebook. Izzy is just Izzy on Facebook, and
Gallifrey's Bay,
on Twitter. and I've posted these before too. And Chloe, you're Materia Girl on Facebook, right? And then Lies in Arbor Goal with no D.
No D. Hold the D.
It took me forever to realize that's what it said because it doesn't have the D.
A lot of people have told me that, and like one of my buddies, Caitlin. That's exactly what my buddy Caitlin, who cosplays, she calls it that. She goes, "Lies in a Borgle." That's a
Oh
big
wait,
joke.
it's supposed to be Lies in Arbor Gold.
Yeah,
it's just the character limit. Yeah, hold the D.
Okay, so my brain just exploded because I was like, "What the fuck is?" I was like, "What the hell is? What the heck is an Arbogol?" I was like, "Is that a monster?" And now I understand.
Everything makes more sense.
Yeah, it does.
So now that we've introduced ourselves, like we got a little bit, some other introduction stuff to talk about, and we'll keep this portion, kind of short or whatever. Basically, everybody goes to conventions for different reasons. So, and honestly, like having talked or gone back and forth with you guys, like in our little Google Doc and everything with the planning, like it's pretty clear that we all attend them for different reasons. There's a few that are similar, obviously, but for me, like I am more likely to go to conventions that my friends talk up or that they are attending, or lately, the past couple years anyway, to ones that invite me as a speaker or a guest. Not because I'm anything super famous or important, but I do feel like I have some things to offer. And I love moderating panels. I love being on panels, and I can talk about like a lot of fandoms and whatnot. So obviously, if I'm going to be able to do that, I'm more likely to attend a convention, even if it's across the country. Honestly, that's the reason I still go to San Diego Comic-Con after all these years, because I am on the single only Song of Ice and Fire fan, panel that happens at Comic-Con. And it's amazing. But also, one of the things I said was I don't go out much when I'm at home. I am definitely like a stay at home and binge watch and or do game nights and drink at home type of person. So cons are kind of like my party too. That's if I want to go out partying, like I just go to a convention. It's so much more fun than going out to a bar around home. So that definitely plays a part in the conventions that I choose. But yeah, and industry conventions like Comic-Con and I've also been to C2E2 are great for networking, which again is good for me. So yeah, what about you guys? And you guys don't have to go in alphabetical order or anything. I just, whoever wants to chime in first, what makes you decide to go to certain conventions?
Boy.
Everybody's like, no,
I will,
ghost.
I'll go. I got it, you two. Hi.
Thank you.
Carrying us. No, I have a couple, like a similar boat with Tara, that like I do a lot of speaking and programming at conventions. I'm a part of Overlord Media Group. We haven't done a lot of stuff lately in the Midwest, but we were doing a lot of stuff in the Midwest. And I'm doing a lot of content writing and a lot of content creation lately. So a lot of times for cons, if I get invited as a guest, or if I get invited, for a programming discount for my badge or whatever, I'll choose that. It's definitely a big thing. But lately, just because since I have started mixing like the whole like business and pleasure convention kind of thing, like working at your time at a con and also still getting to hang out with people, I kind of choose my cons more based on if my friends are going to be there, what type of room I can get. I don't like just having a little small room. I like being able to have like space to have my friends in my room and whatever, entertain them when we have free time. And like, I don't know, I just like being comfortable and having a good time. And I'd rather have three good cons a year than like 10 really crappy cons where you're being 8 people in a tiny room and you don't even like it because you grew out of anime like 10 years ago. And, like, I'm just saying, I'd rather
Thanks
go
for
for
saying
something
the truth.
big. Yep, I'm here with the gospel every day. I don't.
Oh gosh, I have to agree with that and everything, because the main reason I even attend conventions is mostly to see friends that are like far away, and that's why we kind of travel like out far, and we made new friends meeting like Bekah and Tara and Chloe. I already know you from locally.
Yeah.
And like attending those things, it gives me my people for the time of the year, like my people association with people, and then it's back to real life and it's like, I can't stand people for another little bit, and then it's like, oh, convention time again, yeah, it's time to see everybody. But I mostly attend them to like hang with friends and think of new ideas to keep creating and everything, because I like building props, I like building and drawing and everything, and it keeps giving me more ideas. It keeps opening my eyes to things I haven't really seen before, that I don't usually see in my usual pharmacy life that I work every single day and stuff. So it's like every time I go to conventions, I like seeing people, like being around the friends. I like, I do attend panels. I actually did attend a panel just recently at Colossal Con. It was a panel for 18 plus, but I'm not going to get into that right now. But that was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of positivity panels and stuff that I see. A lot of people are starting to more bring that out now, like body positivity and like cosplay, like how to love yourself and cosplay, that kind of thing and stuff. So I'm starting to get more into that. And for Comic-Con wise, I like seeing big famous people like Matt Smith and everything at conventions, and like seeing them talk and everything, because I obsess over their accent.
I mean,
so that's my main things.
Before Bekah goes, like, I just want to say to anybody who is watching this now or later, this is an adult's. We're adults here. There probably will be swearing. We can talk about adult things. I highly doubt anybody under the age of 18 is going to watch this. Let's be real. I'm actually pretty sure my YouTube channel is labeled 18 plus.
Okay.
Because I have like old Ice and Fire Con videos on there that like nobody should see. That they're like hashtag NSFW and everything.
Oh my gosh.
So Bekah, you've only been attending a couple of years, but you've been to a ton of conventions for somebody who's only been going for a little over 2 years. So what do you love most about
I mean, I'm mostly friends, it just depends on who's going to be there. Like, I'm more likely to go to a con where, like, I'll see Chloe, or because like Tara and I used to go to cons together, but then she moved away. So I'm more likely to go to yourself. I'm more likely to go to a convention where my friends are going to be. But also like fun conventions. I mean, I'm not into anime. I'm not into a lot. Like, I have a very specific niche that I really, really like, and that's don't even laugh at me, okay? Look, it's the whole post-apocalyptic badass warrior chick survival stuff. That's my thing. And
That's your aesthetic.
that's my aesthetic, yeah. But no, like I go to cons to not only, be able to geek out with my friends, but to see the friends, to meet new people. And of course I love getting a chance to interact with, some of my favorites from TV shows and stuff like that, but I'll get into that later. But I've been introduced to so many different fandoms. Like Tara got me into Game of Thrones. I had never seen it ever. And I also really, because like I have a thing about making things with my hands. And so like I deal with bipolar. And so sometimes I just need to work. So I work on cosplay and then I have a deadline for the con, and that really helps me. And so, but it's also fun because like you create these friendships with people, like with Chloe or like with Izzy, and you have to cram, a whole year's worth of friendship into like 4 days. Y'all, that's art. That is an art that that's an art that we do. And I've met some of the best people I've ever met in my entire life at conventions because these people get me. So.
Aw.
Yeah, that's I was talking to somebody recently where it was kind of like I have met some of the best people I know and some of the worst people I know
Yeah.
at conventions, and I don't want to like dwell on the latter too much, but I mean, here's the thing. I'm old, guys. I'm 34. So like
you're not
even when I got into going to conventions, at that point I was already at a point in my life where if somebody was shitty, then I wrote them off. You know what I mean? Like you can apologize to me, and if you do something crappy to me and you apologize to me, I'll say, hey, thank you, whatever. But that doesn't mean we're going to be friends.
Right.
And that's definitely been a big help with being part of conventions and the cosplay community, is being able to walk away from people. And honestly, real world, real people that aren't into this stuff, real people, normal people are so like, honestly, if I meet, if 20% of the people I meet through conventions and cosplay turn out to be assholes, that's really not that bad.
No, it's not. That's a really good percentage.
Yeah. And I don't really think it's been more than that. But
like also like just saying like I've been like in my day-to-day interactions with people, I'd be like, so what kind of TV do you watch? Like I don't really watch TV. I don't really watch movies. I don't really read. And I'm just like, how?
Like what do you do?
Like, do you guys like I don't understand it. Like, and it just blows my mind because I'm just like, I want to meet people, I want to date people who, they're fans, and these people are fans. And so I'm just kind of like, whenever I meet somebody who doesn't read or watch TV, I'm just kind of like,
and listen, they probably have things that they're into. The thing is, it's not the things that you're into or I'm into, we're into, whatever.
Well, most people are into sports and all that stuff.
Yeah, like gyms and kayaking and outside.
I love sports, and I love outdoors, but I mean, if you ask me how to define myself, it's not going to be by the fact that I'm a Pats fan or a Red Sox fan or that I love hiking or that I run 30 miles a week. Like, I define myself by the shows that I watch and the comics and the books that I read, because those are the things I want to talk about. Like, how much can you really? I personally can't talk about running that much. It's like, yep, I run. Yeah. It's a thing I do. It's really fucking hot outside to run.
Like in front of the other, and it goes boop 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 boop.
Yeah, there's not much to really go into on it.
But anyway, so we talked about what we go to conventions for, and like, what do you guys care? What could you care less about? Like, what part of conventions do you not pay attention to when you're choosing which ones to go to?
Oh boy.
I don't really give a crap about vendors, and I don't give a crap really about guests. That's just my prerogative. The lines are too much. I would rather use that valuable time to hang out with my friends or to do another activity at the con or whatever. But I'd rather use it for that instead of like worrying about being in line. Now, like Dragon Con, once in a while I'll care about guests for Dragon Con, but otherwise the conventions I go to are really more niche and aren't all guest focused, I guess. So That's more my kind of con, the ones that aren't really guest focused.
Yeah, I'm like, since my answer is basically the same exact thing as yours. I don't care about a guest list, and I don't care about dealer room or vendor room. Like, I am more likely to spend time in like an artist alley or an art show. But even that's not something that determines whether or not I go to a convention. And I've been to a lot of conventions that, either single fandom or multi-fandom that don't have a lot of guests. They have, it's like Canuga. The last couple of years I went to Canuga, we went to Canuga, their biggest guests were like people who played zombies a few times on The Walking Dead or whatever. And it's like, that's cool. Like, that's cool that these people are there. I'll go sit in a panel for that, but listen to them talk, ask them questions, chat with other fans. But like, it's
the party. It's the party. That's why we go, that one party.
And I don't mean to say that I like it, I don't not care about guests at all. Like Chloe said, like if there's somebody I really want to meet, I mean, shoot, at MegaCon this year, I went out of my way to make sure I got a picture with Stan Lee because I'd never gotten a picture with him before. But, it's not something that determines whether or not I go to a convention. Like it's literally, it's negative 10% of why I would go to a convention. If they're there, cool. But even if they are, it's like, I see the Dragon Con guest list every year, and there's probably 20 people that I think, it would be cool to meet that person, but I'm probably not going to go out of my way to do it.
What tore me apart after this year with guests and everything, I attended KatsuCon for the first time this year. And you know how people are all like, oh my gosh, Jessica Negri, oh my gosh, this person, Yaya Han, all these other people. I, like all these guests and everything that were coming to KatsuCon. This is what really tore me away from guests. I met these people and didn't even have to pay for a badge. I didn't have to pay for anything. I met these people at the Pose bar, it was, or so, at the Washington, D.C. Chloe, do you know what that is? That big giant bar that's at the top?
Yeah, at the top. I know what you're talking about. It was right above our room. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, they have a bar up top in the Gaylord.
I met those people, and I didn't even really, that's real. I'm like, you can just walk around sometimes through a convention and you can easily find them and stuff. So I wasn't even trying to look for these people, and I randomly like found them in like all these other places. So I'm just like, I don't really care about going to see guests when I can just kind of walk around and like they'll be standing right there.
You meet them.
Right. And then on top of that, too, like I do like the dealer's room, but I'm only going to the dealer's room for stuff that I know that I can find. But I'm not really all about a lot of things. And some panels, like if it's like a Q&A panel or Q&A panel about Pokemon or something like that, or like a Q&A panel about stuff that you already know, I just kind of started drawing myself away from those parts of the conventions and everything. But that's just my whole two parts of it.
Yeah, no, I like, honestly, I love attending panels, but like something like that, like honestly, I'm not going to wait hours in line for,
right.
I actually can't. Dragon Con is the one convention a year where I usually end up attending one or two of the big, like what would be popular panels, because Dragon Con has a really great disability program, and like with my knees and everything, I can walk and I can run, but I can't stand in a line, and I can't sit in those like tiny little aisles in the tiny little chairs. Like I need to be able to spread out my legs, or like an hour of standing and then an hour of sitting in a panel room like that is going to, like a couple years ago at Dragon Con, it literally put me out of commission for the entire rest of the weekend. Like I could hardly walk, so because Dragon Con has such a great disability, program, it's easy for me to be able to go to panels like that. But at other conventions, I can't. And the fan panels, I really, really love, but at the same time, I've been to some really awesome fan panels and some really crappy ones. And oftentimes I wish that conventions would vet their panelists a little bit better. I don't know. I'll get into that later, I guess. Maybe not.
A Rick and Morty panel panel at one point, and it was not good. It was kind of those things. Yeah.
What convention was it at?
It was at an anime convention, and it was to be expected the way that it was. It was at Colossal Con a year ago, when
Okay.
Rick and Morty was kind of stupid. Oh, not stupid, but like big, stupid big and everything is what I meant to say.
Yeah, I went to a Steven Universe panel at Colossal Con 2015, which is the only Colossal Con I've ever been to, and it was like it was the only panel I went to at that convention because it was one person sitting behind a table talking about, like, it was advertised as like a sing along, and we sat there for 40 minutes, and it was just this one person kind of talking at the audience. So it wasn't even a conversation between a bunch of panelists. It was just one person talking at the audience, and it was like,
yeah, that's a lot of panel. That's another thing that drew me away from panels is just stuff like that. And I'm like,
Cringy.
I expected it to be like panels like Comic Cons.
and the thing is, like, I've been to really great fan panels. I went to an X-Files one at Conuga a couple years ago that was great. And I've also been a panelist on fan panels that I think turned out really, really well. But yeah, I feel like conventions don't necessarily do the best job of vetting
Anime conventions.
Yeah, as especially anime cons, so I've did programming for 5-6 years in an improv sketch group at anime cons and all over the Midwest, and like you just get some interesting like other panels. There were some cons that like they were like, no, we already have this specific type of panel, so we're not going to accept you. But then the panel that got in was very cringy and was like where you had someone sitting there for 45 minutes just talking, droning on, nothing interesting. And it's like, for fan panels, there has to be some sort of interaction to keep the audience on it. Like, otherwise, unless you're laying down some crazy truth bombs about the fandom or, like, being really interesting, there's only so much you can do at fan panels.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I take, personally, the way I having moderated and been on so many panels, like, the way I do it is you give the panelists time to introduce themselves and talk a bit amongst themselves. And I'm talking like, if it's a 45 to 50 minute panel, 20 minutes is how long the panelists get to kind of get the conversation going. And then after that, it should be turned over to the audience. Now, if the audience isn't participating a lot, then yes, the panelists and the moderator have that. It's their job to keep things going. But otherwise it should be about audience participation and audience questions, because otherwise, like, the people on these panels, they aren't famous. Like,
no,
I'm not famous. Like, I can talk about these things. I'm knowledgeable, but like, I'm there to answer your questions or to give my thoughts based on like your theories or thoughts, whatever. Yeah. So, and as somebody who runs conventions, we, after Ice and FireCon every year, we have a survey, and it's impossible to take every suggestion to heart, honestly, because I swear to God, half of them say one thing and half of them are like the exact opposite of that thing. But we do take feedback very seriously with our like panels and with everything, but with our panels and discussions, like, we have our panels and discussions have changed every year based on the feedback that we get from those surveys. And I know that Dragon Con also has, a way to give feedback on panels, but I don't, and I think the track directors listen to that for sure. I mean, I know that the woman who runs the American Sci-Fi Fantasy Media track absolutely does, but at times it's also like, having been on panels at Dragon Con where the reason the panel was awful is because of another panelist, it's like, how do you even fight that, But yeah, so Bekah, poor Bekah has been not able to give her reasons why she attends conventions or like what you could care less about. So you might as well just go ahead and give it all at once, girl.
Oh, okay. I mean, well, like I said, I go for friends. Like, I don't really care about panels. Like, I can count on one hand the number of panels I've been to in the past 3 years.
Remember the panel we took over though? That was fun.
Yeah, I do. And it turned from like Walking Dead into A Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. No, it was Walking. I don't remember what it was, but it was not the way it was supposed to go. But no, like I don't really do panels. Like if I want to talk about things with my friends, I'll just talk about it when we're all really drunk at the bar or whatever. Like, I mean, like I went to the 100 panel in DragonCon 2015, and because I love the 100, like, and I didn't have to wait in a line though. I guess that maybe that's the reason why, like, I'm kind of like about it, because I've never actually had to wait in line for a panel. I've never had to wait in line to meet anybody.
Lucky.
I've just been very fortunate that I've just happened to wander by. What are you giggling about?
Bitch.
Huh?
I don't know
Okay.
what
Continue.
you're giggling about. I'm just laughing.
Okay.
Giggling.
Okay. So I don't do panels. I don't really do any of the demos or the special An Evening With. I did do the mixer thing at MegaCon for the Love is Love, because one of our reporters was not able to go to it, which is really cool. Like, it's the first time I've really gotten a chance to do something like that. And I learned a lot. But I mean, I like if it's a guest that I'm really passionate about, like I know that the 100 people are coming back to DragonCon this year, and that's one of my favorite shows. So of course I'm really excited about it. And but I don't go to conventions to see guests, but if they're there, like that's a bonus, and I definitely will go and want to meet them. I don't really do the vendor, like I have been in the vendor room at DragonCon maybe all of 10 minutes in the past 2 years I've been.
Listen,
And
DragonCon is like,
know,
yeah,
it's a
you
hot
can't
mess,
even like, if I'm going to go to a vendor room or vendor area or artist alley, it's not going to be at DragonCon, because if I stayed at the Westin, maybe, but I'm not walking from the Hyatt down to that America's Mart at the bottom of the hill. And then on top of it, like, on top of that, I've never, even last year when I went in there on Monday, it was so crowded we could hardly move. And it's like the America's Mart is just, I like, honestly, I remember when DragonCon vendor rooms were in the hotels, like in the Marriott and Hilton ballrooms. I think there was like an artist area in one, and the artist alley was in Hyatt, and there were vendor rooms in the Marriott. There may have been some in the Hilton too, but like back then the vendor rooms were miserably crowded, but honestly they're still just as bad as they were then. And while I get that DragonCon had to expand and move them, it's like other outside of Artist Alley stuff, which also is in America's Mart, and I'm not walking down there because I'm lazy-ish. Like everything that you can find at DragonCon in the vendor hall, you can find at every other convention, where their vendor halls are way more accessible.
And like what I do is whenever I go through like vendors or whatever, like if I see something I really like at a vendor table, I'll just pick up a card and then I'll just drop it in my bag. And later, if I really, really want to, I'll just go and check it out online. Now, I spend a lot of time in Artist Alley. I know at MegaCon I spent a lot of money there, mostly for artwork. And I got like a portrait commissioned of my dog, and I know Tara got a portrait commissioned of her cat.
I know, I was about to show it, but it's in the other room.
I don't know where mine is at this point. But no, like I mean, I don't go to a con for guests, but like if the guest is going to be there, that's always a plus. You know, like I go for my friends, but if somebody's going to be there, like I got to meet Jack Gleason last DragonCon, and that was amazing. And I was just a happy little monkey. I don't know what to say. I was very excited. And I got to the chance to meet Bob Morley and all these cool people. And I mean, like I said, I don't go for the guests, and people always like, they tease me sometimes because I'm just like, oh my God, so-and-so's going to be there. And they're just like, but I'm just like, no, I'm excited about it. But okay, I'm done.
I mean, yeah, there's nothing wrong with being excited. There's a lot of people that go to conventions just to meet the guests, and that's totally fine. It's just not for me. Like,
I just think it's funny. You guys are all talking about the vendors and all against it, and me and my husband, we spent over $80 or over $100 at the vendors hall, because we haven't been to a vendors hall that wasn't bigger than anything other than Anime Central in Chicago. We thought that was pretty big, and then we went into the DragonCon one, and it's like it's a whole building. And we're like, holy crap in there. So we just go in there, and he spent $80 worth of dice.
to be fair, like, well, I don't go out of my way for the vendor area, like, and that's why I don't really go to the one at Dragon Con anymore. The vendor areas at most other conventions are part of, you know, the main convention.
Yeah.
So, like, granted, at MegaCon, it's rough for me because I have a booth myself, but at other conventions, like, I will wander the vendor hall quite a bit. I mean, shit, at San Diego Comic-Con, I mean, this is something we'll get into later. I spend a ton of time in the exhibit hall, but that's a kind of a different animal. And we'll get into that in a bit. I mean, we might as well dive into we have a versus section. Yeah. I feel like this is like we need some sort of like video game thing, you know, like versus.
Now fight.
It's like, and it comes up like a PowerPoint, Microsoft PowerPoint.
Yeah.
The first the white.
So we have a big versus section here, and some of these, it's hard to kind of label these correctly in some instances, but we'll start with single fandom conventions versus multi-fandom conventions. So single fandom conventions will be like, not to toot my own horn, but Ice and Fire Con.
I totally answered that wrong too. I'm just reading over this. I'm like, I answered this wrong. I did not read that through. So you guys can continue this whole thing. I'm just gonna.
It's okay. So like Ice and Fire Con, which is all Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones. Walker Stalker Con, which doesn't really exist as it used to, but the first couple of years that Walker Stalker Con was around, it was a horror convention, but with such a strong, focus on Walking Dead that it really, it could be considered, if you ask me, a single fandom convention. Star Wars Celebration is another one. And multi-fandom conventions are like everything else. I don't know I'm going to not count industry conventions in this one. Industry being like New York Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con, C2E2, because that industry is an entirely different thing, and we'll get into that in a bit. But like Dragon Con, MegaCon, even MegaCon is almost an industry. Well,
I thought it was an industry.
It's not industry. It's more like a corporate convention now, because it's owned by Fan Expo, which does a ton of them. But generally, it is multi-fandom. So like Dragon Con, MegaCon, Con-Nuga, even basically any convention that has panels and guests and stuff that are from many different sects of fandom. Like, I've had really great times at single fandom conventions. I think that if they're run well, they're the best kind of conventions. Obviously, I'm biased toward Ice and Fire Con, but even like Walker Stalker Con, the first Walker Stalker Con back in 2013 in Atlanta was amazing. I enjoyed the second one I went to. It wasn't the same, but back when they had that single fandom focus and seemed like they really knew what they were doing, which is weird that I feel like they knew more about what they were doing the first year than they did the second year. It was really fun. I do enjoy multi-fandom conventions, but how good they are for me depends on their programming. Dragon Con is great because they have all those different tracks. So you can be into only one or two or three things, and you'll always find a ton of different panels and stuff to go and guests, panels to go to and guests to meet that are part of those several fandoms that you love. Con-Nuga, again, it's so much smaller, but they have really great fan panels. They also have really great writing panels. So it's hard to say I like one more than the other, because I think that single fandom conventions can be very badly done. But I've been lucky enough where most of the single fandom cons I've gone to have been the opposite. They've been done very well. I don't go to Walker Stalker Con anymore because I didn't like the direction they were taking starting in their third year, but that's me. I know not everybody would necessarily agree with that. And multi-fandom cons, like Colossal Con actually is one that I would say I've been to other anime. I've only been to one other anime con. It was Anime Week in Atlanta. I think Anime Week in Atlanta was a way better convention in terms of programming and stuff. Colossal Con is in a cooler place and has more
Things to do.
partying. It has more
Yeah.
partying. But honestly, like the only reason I enjoyed Colossal Con the one time I went is because of my friends. And also I don't like hot tubs or water parks or really fruity or sweet frozen drinks. So
Yeah.
it's just, and that combined with the fact that their programming schedule was like really shitty, to be honest, it was kind of like, I'm not, if it was something I could drive to, I would probably go back, but I'm not going to spend hundreds of dollars to fly to Detroit and rent a car and drive to Sandusky. So anyway, what do you guys think? And I know, Izzy, I don't know as if you've been to any really like single fandom conventions, but if you, I don't know.
The only one I've gone to was probably Midwest Media Expo in Michigan. Like, they had to make a second convention from Youmacon, which was an anime convention, but people started turning it into more of a fandom convention. And now Youmacon, which used to be called the Detroit's Anime Convention, is now called Fandom Convention because people don't fall for the anime anymore. A lot of their panels have to do with Steven Universe, Marvel, and a whole bunch of things now, and it's not even about anime anymore. And so they made this sister con called Midwest Media Expo, which was supposed to happen in April, but it got shut down this year because the hotel kind of failed on them this year. But that's what that was all supposed to be about, Doctor Who and everything, and it was supposed to be everything that was like steampunk or steam power draft. So I guess they're all pushing that all to Youmacon now. But I went to Midwest Media Expo and I got to see steampunk. I got to see just everything that was media wise. I got to see that, but I didn't really get to understand too much of it because it was still freshly new at that time. So I'm just going to fizzle out in this conversation right here.
No, it's okay. I mean, I know Chloe and Bekah have been to plenty of Chloe especially, I think, has been to you've been to a lot of single fandom cons, haven't you?
Yeah, I've been to a good amount of single fandom. I've been to Long Island Who in New York, which is a Doctor Who con. Actually, really fun time, really well run. All the programming was fun. There were really fun like mixers and events. My group ran a panel, and we got to have just a really kick-ass time there. Ice and Fire Con is obviously, I go to that religiously, not to compare us more for her, but I do, and I love it. It's one of my favorite cons. I've really strayed away from a lot of the multi-fandom, like, I guess I wouldn't even say like multi-fandom cons I go to, but like anime cons in general, I don't choose to go to an anime con anymore. Like if I do, like there's one that's in Lansing that all of my friends come to, and one of my buddies runs it. It's a good con. It's a fun con, so I go to that once in a while, but I don't like stay for the whole weekend because it's in my city. I just drive and find parking and hang out with everyone for the day. I mean, really the bigger multi-fandoms, I'm not as passionate anymore about it. I used to really like be like, yeah, like anime con this, and oh, we'll have a good time doing this, but it's just, I don't have the energy anymore as an old wizened lady in my con career. I'm like, in my 10 years of cosplaying, I'm like just tired. I just want to go do stuff I want to do. I want to go get medieval gowns on or go jump in the TARDIS and drink a beer with my friend, you know? That's so I guess single fandom wins just because you're more passionate about the stuff, you know? It's something you're more passionate about.
And like I said, if a single fandom convention is run well, then it is, I really think it's better than most of the sort of multi-fandom conventions. That's my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, I love Dragon Con so much. Like, it's such a different beast than, like, something like Ice and Fire Con is. But, I mean, like, for me, like, the amount that I love Dragon Con and the time that I have and the fun I have with the people and the memories I have is equal to the time I had in Ice and Fire Con. Like, those same exact, like, different scale, but they're still equal amounts of, like, memories and, like, fun. Like, I look fondly at it equally, so I like both, but single fandom, I think, is just a more intimate kind of setting.
Well, and to be fair, we absolutely, when Ice and Fire Con first began, and granted, you know, now that it's just myself and KK, who has never been to Dragon Con, but she having come to Ice and Fire Con since the beginning, me and the original organizers, we wanted it to be like a mini Dragon Con where you stay in a place and you walk to the bars and the, everything is right there and it's easily accessible, and it's a big party where, yes, there's plenty of serious stuff going on during the day, but there's also, other things that aren't as serious constantly. And that's definitely, DragonCon absolutely affected how Ice and Fire Con was founded and planned from the start. And I think that's why I love it so much.
Okay, so I gotta pull up my thing here because I'm on my mom.
I'm gonna mute myself for a second because my dogs are going crazy.
Okay.
Bye.
So I mean, I've only ever been to one single fandom thing. I think it's 3 years. And then, I mean, everything else, though, has just been multi-fandom. So I like getting a chance to spread out. I like getting a chance to, because, like, I mean, single fandom, it's very close. And there's, like, a really nice little family, especially with Ice and Fire Con. And, like, I've met some of the best people ever there. I see you flicking your hair. I see you. So, I mean, there's like a lot to do at multi-fandom conventions. There's a bunch of different, things to do, people to see. So, I mean, it's kind of, because I really haven't been to any other single fandom conventions other than Ice and Fire. But I mean, coming up here, I'll be doing, I'll be able to go to the Beach City Con. That's another single fandom one. So, also put on by Tara and KK. And then, by the way, doing amazing right now. And
we're almost sold out.
What? Really?
We're almost sold out.
Oh, I was telling people.
I'm talking like less than 2 dozen tickets away from being sold out.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, yeah. So, I'm looking through because I have my notes on my phone. But yeah, like, I mean, I create, a good family or whatever, but then, like, because, like, I know a lot of my friends don't like iZombie, don't like the 100, and, so, like, whenever I go to Dragon Con, I get a chance to, like, go to the 100 shoot, and then we go and meet the guys, and, or, we have the Hunger Games Bunny Hutch, so it's, like, it's kind of spread out everywhere. But there's a certain charm to both, I think. So, I don't know, I can't really pick one.
I mean, that's fine. Well, and I know that you haven't been to a lot of single fandom conventions. Like, I forget that you haven't gone to a Walker Stalker Con yet. But to be honest, like, I wouldn't even call that single fandom anymore. So, and honestly, we're, well, real quick, because I don't know, have any of you guys been to, oh no, Chloe, you've been to C2E2, right?
Yes.
Okay. I love C2E2. I think as industry conventions go, it is amazing. I went to, honestly, I didn't go to a single like big panel there, but I went to a bunch of fan run panels that were probably outside of San Diego Comic-Con, some of the best fan run panels I've ever been to. And you can just pick up free books everywhere at C2E2. Like, all the publishers just have free books sitting out. I got like 6 or 8 free books. And that was just like, I wasn't getting there early or anything. This was me wandering around being like, oh, they have books here. I'm going to pick one up. So C2E2, for those who don't know, is Chicago. What is it? Chicago? I don't even know what it stands for.
Pop Culture and Entertainment Expo or whatever.
Yeah. And it's amazing. Like, what I loved. So we're going to go real quick. Industry versus non-industry. I am very much I prefer non-industry, but I do see the draw of industry conventions. I've not been to New York Comic Con because I don't like New York City. I'm from New England, so I'm a Boston girl. So New York City is, but no, C2E2. It's in Chicago. It's in downtown Chicago. The problem is it's like on the edge of downtown Chicago. So if you're going to C2E2, and you want to also see Chicago, it's possible, but it's not, if you're staying at the host hotel, it's not the best. if you want to like actually be close to nightlife and stuff. There's C2E2 doesn't have any nightlife by itself. But they do serve beer and other alcohol in the convention center, which was like amazing to me because I'd never been to a convention center convention that had that before. I've been to obviously conventions at hotels and stuff where you can go to a bar and get alcohol, but to actually be able to buy a beer, by the way, that a local Chicago brewery made specifically for C2E2 at the convention center was amazing. But I do prefer non-industry conventions. I mentioned earlier the exhibit hall at San Diego Comic-Con. As much as I don't give a crap about vendor halls and stuff at other conventions, the one at San Diego Comic-Con it's a different animal because it's more than like your average dealer or vendor hall. There are activities, there are walkthrough exhibits, there are author signings where you can collect a free book. I mean, Bekah, I got you the copy of Red Rising last year.
Yeah.
All I had to do was wait in line for like a half an hour. And it came with it, like they were giving Red Rising away, and Pierce Brown, who is like so attractive, signing them. And he asked me who my favorite character was, and I was like, Severo. And he was like, really? And I was like, you're talking to me. Because he's like, I don't care about famous people, but like this guy is an amazing writer and also really attractive, even though he's like 2 inches shorter than me. So
everybody's shorter than you.
But yeah, so as like I see perks for industry conventions, but I do prefer like Dragon Con. I do prefer I don't care about like the con exclusive merchandise. Star Wars Celebration was like the exact honestly, it was everything that could go wrong with a single fandom and industry convention all wrapped into one weekend.
No.
It was so bad. It was like, I feel like I shouldn't even be saying this because like if anybody from Star Wars Celebration ever sees this, I'll never get a press pass ever again. It was horrible. It was probably the worst convention I've ever been to. Like just disorganized. They had like all these exclusive Funkos, but you had to get win like a lottery, which it was free to enter. But if you didn't win the lottery, you weren't getting one of their exclusive Funkos because there were people standing there by the line, like from like eBay sellers and stuff that would be like, hey, if you're not buying the exclusive Thrawn Funko, I will give you $30 right now, and all you have to do is buy one of these $10 Funkos, and you get to keep $20. So like by the time normal people who didn't win the lottery got to, enter the booth, there was nothing left. The line for the Celebration store, which had a ton of exclusive stuff, was never less than 2 hours long. I tried to go to a panel, and they had changed the location. So it took me, I would have been on time, but because they'd changed the location, it took me 10 minutes to find it. And by the time I found it, even though it was only 10 minutes late, they wouldn't let me in.
Oh no.
To a fan panel. It wasn't full. It wasn't a full panel. It wasn't like they weren't allowing people in because it was full. They just weren't allowing people in because it had already started. And I was like, I've never been to a convention where people weren't allowed into a fan panel late unless it was
like
full.
You want those people to come in.
Yeah. So yeah, like as industry and single fandom conventions go, it was just like fail at every turn. But again, I do think that industry conventions had their perks. If I had to choose between, I mean, honestly, I had like C2E2, I couldn't go this year because it was the week before Ice and Fire Con. And that was, as much as I hated missing it, it wasn't, obviously Ice and Fire Con. Even if I wasn't an organizer, it would have been Ice and Fire Con. If I had to choose between Comic-Con, like San Diego, and Dragon Con, I would go to Dragon Con 10 times over before I would go to Comic-Con. They're fun, but
yeah, I feel like Comic Cons, like a lot of the big like industry cons, are also a lot more make your own fun cons. Like you don't get to enjoy it as much, like a lot of the events. Like some of the panels are good, but there's only so many loops around the whole entire room you can do to look at stuff, like after a point, if there's no programming going on that's tickling your fancy and you're tired and you've been in comic book costume and corset that's breaking your ribs and whatever all day and heels, and you're just like walking around going, oh, it's that artist that I'm not going to talk to again because I've talked to them twice now. Like, it just gets so old after walking around, and like exactly what you like. Dragon Con always has something to do. Like, no matter what, you can go, oh, I can check any of these tracks. I can do this. It's just, I feel like a lot of the industry stuff is fun, but it's very business run. You can tell where the money is coming in from what, and it's just it can be a little obtrusive. I feel like it's not as organic of an experience.
Yeah. Like I said, there are pluses to industry conventions, but nothing that would make me choose one of them over like any non-industry convention.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, honestly, if it was
like,
if it was if C2E2 got moved to February for some godforsaken reason, and it was between C2E2 and Con-Nuga, and this is me actually being able to attend one of them, I would choose Con-Nuga in a heartbeat. So, and that's a small convention on top of it.
I'd have to agree about the Comic Cons and everything, like Wizard World conventions. I feel like they are just a huge, money grab every time and everything. Like, unless if you want to do this, you got to pay for this. Well, if you want to do this, you got to pay for this. It's like, well, what did my badge get me for? And it's like, well, we got to pay for this too. But the plus side is I got to meet Matt Smith with my husband. That was our first date and everything too.
Aww.
And then we got to meet Jenna Coleman, and we got to things like that. And we went to Indiana Comic Con, and I was just having a conversation with someone else about this the other day who was trying to convince me about Indiana Comic Con, and which we've gone to before. And that's how we met Jenna Coleman. And they had said well, if you go to these other things at the comic convention, you can check out this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, but everything costs so much money and stuff. There wasn't very much else to do. There wasn't I expected it to be like an anime convention, but I don't really do things at anime conventions either, because I just I don't know. I just expected more out of it, but I just not already just kind of get conventions. I'm just here for the people anymore now too. So besides the guest, if I want to see more Doctor Who guests, that's pretty much it. Where's my?
Well, I mean, and honestly, that kind of pulls us into the next portion, which is corporate versus non-corporate conventions, because Wizard World and nowadays Walker Stalker, which I think is now being called Heroes and Villains Fan Fest. I don't even know if I think they do still have Walker Stalkers sometimes, but it's not. They used to have 6 Walker Stalker cons a year. Now it's 1 or 2, and then the Heroes and Villains thing. I mean, even MegaCon, which used to be an Orlando-based convention, but is now owned by Fan Expo, who is a Toronto-based company, and they didn't just buy MegaCon. They, not only do they own Fan Expo, and they do Fan Expo all over Canada, and they do one in Dallas, but now they also own MegaCon and MegaCon Tampa Bay and Boston Comic-Con. So corporate versus non-corporate. Now, Dragon Con is probably technically a corporation. I'm pretty sure they are for profit and have been for a long time. But we're talking, so corporate versus non-corporate may not be the best way to put it. I'm not quite sure how to actually word the exact difference, but I'm talking, Dragon Con, Con-Nuga, Colossal Con, Youmacon, I'm not even our little conventions versus, Fan Expo, Wizard World, these big corporations that run 4 to 10 at this point conventions a year. What do you guys think about that? Are there perks to the corporate conventions, and what do you like about them if you've attended some versus I don't know.
I have a lot of thoughts about corporate conventions. I have a lot of thoughts, so buckle in, you guys. Let's just buckle on in. Good. All right. Now that we're all toasty and warm and cozy. No, I've been to both. And corporate cons, it's just, when a con gets so big, like Dragon Con, of course, is technically for profit because they have to pay their people that run it. And it's so big that once it escalates in the market so high up and becomes such a successful con, it's going to end up that way. I get that. But like these people that come in for corporations, like the big, like Fan Expo, etc., like the big stuff where they're charging like hundreds of dollars for a ticket just to even get in because they have all these guests that they just forked out all this cash for to just draw people, but there's no actual intimate like connection for the convention goers, if that makes sense. Like there's no intimacy where like it makes you want to go to that con besides, oh, this famous person's going to be here. And you're paying $150 for a ticket to go maybe see a famous person and to walk around and be dressed up and see friends. Like, it's just not really worth it. Mm-hmm. Like, if you want to see really big cosplay, that's really big at a lot of the bigger corporate cons. Like, people bring out a lot of their big stuff. That's cool. If you want to see the big guests and you really, like, there's a guest that never does cons and you want to fork out the big money, then sure. But, like, it's just such a ripoff. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like corporate cons are a rip-off, and it's an obvious rip-off, and it's like, why do you keep giving them the money so they can keep ripping you off? We the people of the conventions should be, you know, controlling what we want to see. Okay, that's all.
You want a revolution? I want a revelation. So listen to my declaration.
Exactly. Rise up, cosplayers.
I mean, yeah, like I prefer not for profit or what I would consider, you know, non-corporate is not, I know it's not the right term, but it's the best thing I can think of to describe them because like Dragon Con and MomoCon are the same company now, but they're still for fans by fans. And I'm not saying that corporate conventions are all run by people who are just completely greedy and have nothing to do with these fandoms, but they're like my biggest issue with these for-profit corporate run chain, that's what I'll call them, chain conventions like Wizard World and whatnot. They have no programming. Like, I don't want to wait in line for hours to go to a Q&A with an actor or actors. And often that's all they offer in terms of panels. And sometimes it's not even, you know, one per hour. It's like 2 or 3 a day, especially with Wizard World. You know, the vendor rooms, they aren't even like, I would say like there's a huge percentage of these vendors at these big, you know, chain conventions that aren't even selling geeky stuff. Like there was a Wizard World issue in Chicago last year where there was like a gun company that was like going to exhibit there. And oh yeah, you couldn't buy like live guns, like actual real guns at the convention, but you could order them.
What?
Yeah, it was earlier this year, maybe it was like sometime last year. It was Wizard World Chicago where they had to like, people were complaining about it once they heard that this was happening and they had to remove this vendor from the list or whatever. It's like they don't vet their vendors at all.
So
didn't we just have a shoot that one?
Yeah, I was going to say that, but here's a hot take on that. Conventions, like those kind of corporate conventions, like Wizarding World and stuff, those are like the liquidation sales of all conventions. They bring in guns. Like, I'm waiting for them to open up a section for selling used tablets in the back. Like, that's what I feel. It's just a cash grab. That's all it is. Like, whatever they can bring in to make money. Oh, gun people? Yeah, they'll probably bring some money. Good for them. Like, they don't care.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing. There's no quality control. Like, this is probably the best time to bring this up. Is anybody else in the Rate That Comic-Con or Rate This Comic-Con group on Facebook?
I hadn't heard of it until you talked about it.
But I will find out about it.
Yeah, there's thousands of people in it. It's not huge, but like a friend suggested it to me recently and I joined it, and it's kind of, right now I'm just kind of sitting back and watching the mess because some of it is legitimate, you know, issues and complaints, you know, people saying, hey, this convention bombed and there's a lot of vendors talking back and forth with each other about conventions where they pay to vend and things don't go well because the convention didn't do their job marketing or whatever. And then there was a lot of complaints about the recent issues with, I think it was like Phoenix Comic-Con, where they said like no prop weapons are allowed.
Oh yeah,
there was that attack on the actor, or the wannabe attack on the actor from Power Rangers or whatever. Like, some of it's very legitimate, and some of it's just kind of like, wow, like, I am wasting a lot of time reading these posts in this group because they're complaining. It's like, I've never seen people bitch so much about guests being canceled at conventions. Like,
it
do
happens.
they not understand these people have lives, that they have
right
work? Like
filming schedules, like.
Yeah, and that's honestly most of the time is what I don't even know.
I just gotta give like conventions like Youmacon. Like, I am friends with the guy who runs that convention. I gotta give him so much credit because he is running all this stuff out of his pocket by himself. Like, not by himself, but like he's done such an awesome job keeping Youmacon running, despite all the like little failures he's had at like a little bit. He's like always like a press and go kind of thing, like, I'm going to test the waters and then I'll keep going with it and type things. And then he's gotten so much help. That is one convention that's still completely fan ran, that I know for sure, for a fact, that it's easy. That's why I keep attending it every year and stuff like that, because he keeps 24-hour panel gaming running. He keeps 24-hour game rooms. He keeps 24-hour functions going constantly, and you don't have to pay for everything and stuff, and you just pay for your badge and you just go. And provided that they're not an anime convention anymore, it's just, I like the fact that they keep on going with a lot of stuff. And still, it's not like a Comic-Con. It's not like anything that has like big named guests. It's mostly the same anime guests, Steam Power Draft, like YouTubers, like big name YouTubers and stuff is what they're starting to bring a lot more now. And people are starting to like that and stuff too. And now that the convention's gone up to, I think it's going up to like 25,000 this year. At least is what they're expecting. So I'm very shocked about how far this convention has gone, because back when it was at the Hyatt Hotel in Dearborn, it was only like 5,000 people, and now we're up to 25,000 people this year, and I'm like, wow.
When it was at the Hyatt in Dearborn, it was like 3,000 people.
Okay.
It wasn't even 5,000. Like, that's nuts. And then if you want to put it earlier, when it was at Troy, the first year, I mean, that was way less. But I did security staff for Youmacon for a couple years, and I remember 2 years ago we had 18,000. So this year it's projected like over 25,000, and that's pretty big. But it's still fan run, like Izzy's saying. It's been, I mean, like, I remember when it was tiny and it was at the small hotel, and you guys would really be interested in the way it was set up, because now it's moved. It's across the Cobo Hall, and it's across the Renaissance Center and the Marriott, and like, it's very interesting because it's just this big, like, almost like a Final Fantasy VIII maze, like how like the Seed Academy is. Like, it literally looks like the Seed Academy from Final Fantasy VIII, 'cause it's just like these circles, and you go up the escalators to the next level, and there's like circles, and then you walk around them, and it's really cool. But you can get really lost if you don't know it. But like, this con, like, it's just expanding. But then what point will it get to where it becomes a con that can't be fan run anymore, and they're gonna keep expanding? Like, it's interesting to see how cons grow and what happens when they get to a certain growth hurdle.
Right, exactly. And a lot of people too, part two of that, a lot of people are scared to come to Detroit, and especially since it's downtown Detroit.
God.
And they're just like, oh my God, I'm not going to Detroit. And a lot of reasons people won't go to Youmacon is because it's in Detroit. It's in downtown, the safest part of the city and everything. And I'm like, okay, you guys, I'm done with you.
if they would bring me in as a speaker or a guest, I would go. I'm just not paying for a plane ticket to Detroit, if I'm also going to have to pay. Like, I don't even want to say it's not about paying for a ticket or not for me, whether or not I go to a convention, but like, for me to travel, like, to pay for the travel expenses, I've got to have more than just I'm going to a convention. I
Oh,
can
yeah.
drive to
Mhm.
Dragon Con. You know, I can, any convention in Florida, obviously I'm driving to. Like Comic-Con, I will pay to fly to and everything because it is Comic-Con, and there's so much networking that I can do there that I can't do anywhere else. And I'm also like considered a trade professional at Comic-Con, so that helps as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, like conventions like that, I would love to attend some different conventions like around the States, but I've got to get in and have like a booth where I can sell my books and cosplay prints, or be a speaker. Like I was at ClexaCon. I paid to go to ClexaCon in Las Vegas, like for my flight and hotel and everything. My pass was free, but like I got to speak on 6 panels throughout the weekend. So I got to, I felt like I was involved and I got to put my name out there and everything. So for me, it's definitely let me, speak on some panels and stuff.
A lot of it has just so much politics behind a lot of things, especially certain way too. And like Youmacon, I don't even know what's going to happen with them eventually, because he knows this convention's getting so large now that he doesn't even know what to do with it. And so far they had that. It's just a lot and stuff just in general for a convention. But that's why I keep attending it every year, because I'm like, this con has gotten from a small to a large big giant taking town that takes over Detroit. But Michigan and like Ohio needs something like what you guys have, like Dragon Con, and like you guys have Dragon Con and all these other big giant expos. We still have yet to have one of those in around Ohio and Michigan, and we don't have anything big like that. And the only thing we have is Youmacon, which is really our big star pride of the Midwest, honestly, besides ColossalCon. But ColossalCon, like I said, is not really a convention you really want a convention at. It's just big party. So all those
and I think a big part of that is like with something like Youmacon, if they're willing to grow and change, then they could, because it's in a hotel, isn't it? It's in like a Renaissance Marriott or whatever. Like something like that. It may not ever be Dragon Con level, but if it's growing that way in numbers, if they're willing to expand their programming and whatnot, like it may be a few years before they could afford big name guests, but that doesn't mean that they can't have different tracks with track directors and do, not just anime or animation in general, but like just general fandom stuff. I honestly feel if they were, did you say that Youmacon was the one who tried to do that Midwest? Yeah. I honestly feel that was a mistake on their part. Instead of branching out into a second convention, they should have just tried to expand their own convention. Like, I'll tell you this much. If Steven Universe as a show ends within the next couple of years, Beach City Con will not be Beach City Con anymore. It will become a Western animation convention where we aren't just about Steven Universe. We're also about, like, say, Gravity Falls and Adventure Time. Yeah, like it'll be a general Western animation convention if Steven Universe ends anytime soon. And I feel like that's where Youmacon may have misstepped. And I'm not saying they did anything wrong, because I did hear about that situation. And from what I've heard, it was issues with their venue. And it wasn't, really their fault or whatever, that things went bad. But I mean, and if you want to grow, I feel like everybody just, their first thing is, okay, if we want to grow, we've got to have more than one convention. That's the worst decision you can make.
Yeah.
That is like owning a company and deciding like, we want to be bigger, so we're going to split this into 2. No, you don't do that. That's like the first rule of business. Sorry, this is me going all like business on everything.
No.
But
I think a big thing too with them is that Youmacon, like turning it from an anime con to a fandom con in itself was a big deal. Like it doesn't sound like a big deal and didn't read as a big deal, but that is a big deal to turn its focus away like that, because they were adapting with the times. And I think Morgan knows kind of what he has ideas about expanding, because I mean, like Detroit, like Izzy was saying, I mean, people don't want to come to it because it's in Detroit, but like if they utilize the other, it's also in like the fall, so it's sometimes the weather can be kind of patchy, so it's not like as easy to just say it's always going to be beautiful. It could be snowing, it could be not, but like the downtown, the Hart Plaza, I mean, they could spread it across downtown Detroit a lot more if they could expand it, but I think that's definitely something they're going to have to do. They've already expanded it to the Cobo Center, which is already across there, and they are expanding it. So, I mean, really the next step is expanding it to the other hotels for programming. But I don't think that really they have quite that much of a need for that yet, but I think eventually it will come to that.
It's going to get there. I feel like within the next 5 years, Yomicon's going to be at least at 30,000, and we're going to be like, oh crap, what the heck are we going to do? Because
what happened? Yeah.
The hotels are already selling out in like minutes. Some hotels, everything, it's all downtown. Then that section is getting sold out in like minutes, and you're like,
I don't even know if I'm going. I literally just bought my hotel room as soon as I heard they were going up. Like I have a friend that told me, hey, they're up. They haven't announced it, but they're open. And I was like, bye. And I just booked my hotel just in case. Just in case.
Unless you're staying at that Renson hotel going up and down that elevator. No.
No thanks.
Yeah, I've heard your complaints about that. I ran into a similar situation at C2E2 last year where I had to, for reasons I cannot disclose, I had to find seriously, they're very personal, like health reasons. I had to find an employee of the hotel and be like, I need to get up to my room. How can you do that? And they had to bring me back like behind doors to like the service elevator to get me up to my room, because the wait for there are like 4 elevators in this Hyatt that's attached to the convention center where C2 is held, and it was like right at the end of the day, and the wait was like 45 minutes for the elevator.
Wow.
It was insane. But yeah, so and I think Bekah, you're maybe the only one we haven't heard from in terms of corporate versus non-corporate. No, nobody's who said sorry.
Me.
No. So Bekah, because we have other things to talk about like right before we wrap this up, but you, what do you feel about like the whole like, again, corporate versus non-corporate is probably wrong. It's more like chain versus not chain conventions. And I guess like MegaCon is really the only like quote unquote chain convention you've been to, and even then, I don't feel like I still don't feel like MegaCon has reached that point of really being so, so part of the Fan Expo brand that they aren't their own thing. But I don't know. What do you think about like the corporate versus non-corporate or chain versus not chain conventions?
I mean, I've never been to a chain convention, so like I can't really see. Like, I mean, not Dragon Con. MegaCon is the only thing I can think of, and oh, here comes the dog. No, you can't come here. No,
Bring the doggy. Anyway. Bring the doggy.
She's gonna jump on me in a second, I'm sure. There's a little nose over here, but no, I've never been to a corporate convention, so I mean, I can't really say anything, but like like whenever I first what was my first convention. Like my first convention that I went to that was like a big one was Dragon Con 2015. And I got so excited because who was it that was going to be there? It's Richard Harmon. And all my friends know about my thing with Richard and with Murphy. He's my favorite character on the 100, and I'm just like, and the Richard's a really swell guy. And so I was just so excited about that. But I've never Dragon Con for the most part, like. Okay, so like Dragon Con is a good convention. Like it has, for the most part, a pretty good reputation, I think, other than, and I think that people have a good time there unless you're, trapped in the habit trails or you're being baked alive in your costume. Because it gets hot in Atlanta in August and September. That's a little bit of an understatement. I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I get excited about, and there are some people who are just like, and I've dealt with this a couple of times where people have just been like I'll get really excited about a guest being there, and they're just like, oh, you go for guests? And I'm like, no, I go to see my friends, but like, the fact is that there's somebody there that I really want to see, and I get excited about it, but then I feel guilty for getting excited about it. And like, I mean, I don't go just to see them or whatever. Like, I get a selfie and but like, I've never done a corporate convention, so I can't really say one way or the other.
I guess technically you can say that MegaCon has been a corporate convention the past couple of years because it has, it's been owned by Fan Expo since before MegaCon 2016. But like I said earlier, I've not been to other Fan Expo conventions, and I do really feel like at this point in time, the MegaCon conventions that are down here, they are not like anything like a Wizard World, or honestly, like Walker Stalker, which is Walker Stalker and or Heroes and Villains, whatever the fuck they're calling themselves now, because like I'm totally lost as to what the fuck is going on with them. But like, I knew these guys, like I did interviews with them for the Geekiary when Walker Stalker was was first created, before it even happened. And like, these are just two fans that ran a podcast that were, super excited about having a fandom convention. And the reason I didn't go in 2015 to Atlanta was because I could not justify the cost of the hotel. Like I had a press pass, but I could not justify the cost of the hotel because they had no scheduled panels except for the Andrew Lincoln panel, which was $25 to attend, and press did not get free tickets. Their nightlife was a separate ticketed event. So like, yeah, I basically had a press ticket to a vendor floor. I can't afford, like, even then, when I had a very well-paying 40-hour plus a week job, I could not afford to pay close to $200 a night for a hotel to go to a convention where my press pass gets me into a vendor hall. What am I going to write about? And that was kind of my first, having never attended a Wizard World. I still haven't attended a Wizard World con. That was my first, like, sort of foray into the whole, wow, there are conventions out there that have no programming, and like their idea, like I understand that the Andrew Lincoln panel, the money was going to charity. I think Andrew Lincoln is a great guy. Like, I've met him. He was very, very nice. I don't blame him for this at all. And I'm cool with them charging for the panel if the money is going to charity. But as press, what am I supposed to cover if the only panel you have scheduled is something I have to pay for? That goes against everything I believe in. So, that's kind of like, to me, I feel like Walker Stalker / Heroes and Villains, whatever it is now, is like more of like a corporate shitty whatever nonsense convention thing than like MegaCon is. And again, like I don't have complaints with MegaCon or Fan Expo, because as much it is probably the most like corporate / chain convention I've attended recently, they do still have fan panels. They do still have a good artist alley. They have a lot of cosplay guests, which is not, like, as somebody who runs conventions, I'm not going to bring cosplay guests into my single fandom conventions, but like at a convention like MegaCon, I think it's a cool thing. You get to meet somebody who does something really, really well and is also friendly and willing to talk to you about it, and they'll be on panels about it. So I think there's right ways to do it and wrong ways to do it. And I think that like Fan Expo has, as far as I can see, been doing a really good job, versus like Wizard World, from everything I've seen from like friends who've attended, is just not. It hasn't really ever been, but I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
I think it comes from also there's a lack of being in touch with the fans, where like, so MegaCon and Fan Expo, for example, like that all, they care about what the fans want, and they give a crap. Like the people that are attending, they actually listen to what they're saying and say, okay, they want that. That's cool. Where like Wizard World doesn't care. This is how it is. This is what you're paying for. You're showing up and you're getting this.
I do not like Wizard World's too much bunny.
Not worth it.
My dog just walked in here and farted.
Eh.
I'm not kidding. Like, he walked in here and I was like, oh, there's a dog. And I bent down to pet him and then it just like wafted up into my nose and it's the worst thing I've ever smelled. Oh my
Rigby has the worst farts.
That's who it was
ever.
too. You know it was Rigby.
Of course it's Rigby. Rigby has like acid farts that like burn a hole in the atmosphere. Like it's bad.
The cat's just chilling here.
Anyway, so we've been close to an hour and a half. This is a good length. My closing question before we wrap this up, because this is something that I've seen like come up in that Rate That Comic-Con group and also in discussions with friends. Is the convention market or whatever you want to call it oversaturated right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's my take on it. Is it oversaturated? Yes. It is oversaturated because there are a lot of people out there who think that they can run a convention
Boom.
who really shouldn't. And I'm not saying that I am the most, I'm not saying that I'm the end all be all of who can or cannot or should not be running a convention. I'm not. But there are a lot of companies and or people out there that think they can run conventions right now that shouldn't be or can't. I mean, honestly, like I really hate like ranking on Wizard World so much because I've never been to a Wizard World convention. So in a way, what do I know? But also I do know that they have had a lot of trouble the past couple of years, that they have lost a ton of money because they tried to do too many conventions in too many places in a single year. And they've had to cancel a lot of conventions. They were supposed to do one in Greenville, South Carolina. And they first they put it off. They said, okay, we're not going to do it in 2016 or whatever. We're going to do it in 2017. Then they canceled it altogether. And
then they had Big Fandom Greenville too. Yeah, it's okay. It's struggling. It's riding the struggle bus right now. As far as like the convention market or the saturation of it, like I haven't really been in the convention scene very long, and like I don't really pay attention to a lot of conventions. The only time I ever pay attention is whenever my friends are posting photos. Like I know MomoCon, I know Katsucon, but I don't know all of those Anime Weekend Midwest Happy Fun Time Hour. Like they all sound the same after a while. And I don't know. Like because like I really like pay attention to Dragon Con and Ice and Fire Con, and then but then I hear like these little ones like Ichiban Con here, MomoCon.
MomoCon is not little, to be fair.
Yeah, I know. It's not little. Trust me. No,
name wise,
but it's like.
Ramen Con, Nacho Con.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like at this point, it's just like pick a noun and slap a word con on it. And but I don't.
That to be fair, that's actually really Bekah. So like anime cons are actually a huge dying breed, and so hearing those kind of like little names like that, those are last second people that are like, we can save anime cons, and everyone's like, no, you can't because they died for a reason.
No, I was saying like I was thinking about DashCon. And I was thinking about like those conventions, where people are just like, you know what, we should do this. No, you fucking shouldn't. And
honestly, I will touch on DashCon right now.
Let's do it. Call them out.
No, I'm not calling out DashCon. I'm calling out everybody who compares every new convention to DashCon.
Yeah,
all the people who are about Beach City Con. Like, oh, you guys the new DashCon? And I'm just like, no. Like I don't know. It just
Here's the thing. DashCon was it was supposed to be like a Tumblr convention. Cool, fine, whatever. The problem is the people who were running it had no planning experience whatsoever, and they also had no like monetary, like they had no idea how to run like the accounting for a company. And they expected thousands more people. They expected thousands more tickets to sell than they actually sold. So they booked all these guests based on nothing. Like they didn't even make it was an Indiegogo. So when you run an Indiegogo, you don't have to make, like, you can say your goal is $10,000, but you'll still get the money if you only make 5,000. So that's what happened with them. They set a goal. They did not make it. It wasn't quite that disparate, but it was there was a couple $1,000s difference, and they hoped that even though they didn't make their Indiegogo goal, that they would make enough money in ticket sales, after that and at the convention to cover all their expenses. They did not. So when that didn't happen, they screwed the one major guest that they were bringing in, which was the Welcome to Night Vale people.
Oh yeah.
And in turn, the Welcome to Night Vale people were like, listen, we hate to do this, but we can't afford to stay here. They aren't paying our hotel. They're not reimbursing us for our travel like they said they would. We are broke. We don't make a lot of money off of this. We cannot stay here. So the Welcome to Night Vale people understandably left. And I have an article. If you Google search the Geekiary -Con, our article had hundreds of thousands of hits. So it's probably the first thing. Honestly, if you search -Con scam or something, it's probably the first thing that's going to come up. But the thing is, since that happened, so many people compare, and not just us, not just Beach City Con, but they compare every new convention that crops up, especially if you do a Kickstarter or something, they compare it to -Con. There was a Hannibal convention that was planned recently that I actually, as a consultant, I worked on this convention at an hour, they paid me an hourly consulting rate to give them information and advice. And I was very certain that they would make their Kickstarter goal and have a successful convention. They did make their Kickstarter goal. They're in the midst of planning their convention. They've sold a good amount of tickets. Their convention is happening in November, and I think it's going to go very well. But they're another one that is being lumped in with Beach City Con, and compared to -Con because they had a Kickstarter. Walker Stalker Con started with a Kickstarter, and they were probably one of the first conventions that had a Kickstarter because this was back in early 2013. And their Kickstarter was successful. Nobody compares them to -Con because they existed before it. But every convention that has a fundraiser post -Con is being compared to them, and it's fucking maddening.
I have to say this one part though, there's this convention called BlurredCon. It's for BlurredCon Black Nerds or whatever and stuff. So far, they have used a Kickstarter convention or so, is what they're supposed to be using right now in a Kickstarter. And all they've been announcing is cosplay spotlight guest, cosplay light spotlights, cosplay guests, cosplay everything, and there's supposed to be a whole bunch of people of color that are supposed to be going to it. But they haven't really announced programming. They haven't really announced anything you're supposed to do at a convention and stuff like that. And I guess the convention is supposed to be all about for people that are of color that feel like a nerd and stuff like that and feel left out with everything. So they started this convention. But nothing information wise has been set out. So they started this Kickstarter and they started this GoFundMe page saying, why don't we have all this money and stuff and use it towards that? And I'm just before you guys start going out there with all this stuff, give us more information about the convention and everything, not just
have a plan.
Right.
I mean, to be fair, we ran our Beach City Con Kickstarter based on hey, yes, we have planned a successful single fandom convention for many years now. And we didn't have any sort of we basically said if we make this, if we make our goal, we will have the convention, and our goal was very low. It was $7,000.
Mm-hmm.
If we had quadrupled our goal, we were bringing in some very big guests.
We tripled it within, was it 24 hours?
No, we doubled it. We doubled it within less than 24 hours. But like, we also, you know, we didn't end up making our stretch goal, but we made enough where we are able to we're bringing in one guest, and we're in talks to bring in a second. Guests are very expensive, especially for small conventions, and we also didn't have, you know, we still don't have any programming listed, but obviously, like we said, we'll have a costume contest, we'll have photo shoots, we'll have panels, we'll have a Steven Universe sing-along, we'll have a Fight Like a Gem combat class. So we didn't have anything super specific, but we did know, you know, these are the general things we're offering. And we have done this before with another fandom. And like, we still, honestly, like we got compared to DashCon even after people were like, wait a minute, but they've planned this other convention. Oh, by the way, that doesn't count because Ice and Fire Con is a bar crawl is what we were called. We were compared to a bar crawl.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was like,
bar crawl.
We were compared to a bar crawl.
Well, it's the best bar crawl I ever been to.
Same. I would like to check that out. It's in Fire and Ice Con. Is that in like Florida or so?
No. We're in Ohio.
Oh,
Yeah.
What?
We were in Virginia the past 2 years, but next year we're back in Ohio. So.
What part of Ohio?
It's between Cincinnati and Columbus. So it's
not even far from us then.
Yeah, not much farther than Colossal Con.
It's Deer Creek.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all. I mean, I have to let Chris know that and stuff too.
But anyway, so yeah, if you want to piss Tara off, just compare anything I do to DashCon.
I'm taking notes.
I reported on DashCon, okay? I know what I'm talking about. Also, I feel like as much as Ice and FireCon is a small convention, I'm not an idiot. We were actually accused of like stealing, people said we were going to steal people's money. And I was like, I was an accountant for 7 years. It literally, even if I was a shitty person otherwise, it would go against everything ethically, I believe, when it comes to like money, to steal anybody's money. I was an accountant. Like, I was the accountant for a company. So yeah, like it's the whole DashCon thing is so maddening. And listen, DashCon was a horrible failure, and it failed for very obvious reasons. And it's not just our conventions, it's literally like any new convention that starts up. Don't just automatically compare it to DashCon, please. You know,
right?
Like,
give it a chance.
Yeah, and give small cons a chance to grow too. You know, some conventions grow organically and some try to force it, and honestly it works in both cases depending on the people who are running the convention. It really does. Like you're saying with YomaCon, maybe they tried to jump into things too quickly or whatever. Personally, and granted, I've never been to YomaCon, so I don't know. I think them trying to create a separate convention wasn't the best decision, but I feel like with what you said about their numbers growth the past several years, I feel like they have something going for them that could work if they do it the right way. And like, yes, the convention market is oversaturated, but I think part of that is that a lot of the conventions that aren't worthwhile are going to get weeded out. And
the big conventions and stuff too, like, sorry to interrupt and everything, like the big ones are like YomaCon. The only reason it even got to the size that it is right now is because of location. Like, that all had to do because, like we said, we were in Dearborn and then like Troy and then Dearborn, and then it got to Detroit, and then it just blew up from there and stuff because they got Detroit, they got the media, they got all types of things and everything and stuff in that, and that's what got them going. But then they tried to start a second convention, which was Midwest Media Expo, and they're still kind of on the cool rocks with that right now. So I don't know how much longer they're going to keep trying to continue to push that convention, honestly. But I hear what you're saying and everything. Like, everything you say is like, it makes sense and everything. And honestly, if they could take some advice from you, that would be awesome. But I can't say anything.
Well, and I think that it's already started. like there are still new conventions cropping up constantly, but they either kind of fail immediately. I feel like most of them that aren't worthwhile are failing immediately, which sucks for them and for the vendors that pay to be vendors and for the people that pay for tickets and don't have a good time. But, I'm not saying don't give new conventions a chance by any means, because there are some really great new conventions that have happened. And, I mean, like, and then there are some ones that I went to a convention in Greenville that doesn't exist anymore, that was, it existed for a few years, then they took a break for a couple years, then they came back and they had, 2 years in a row where they had this convention. And
what was it?
MonsterCon.
I know.
Yeah, I feel like I've heard of that before.
So there's more than one MonsterCon in the States. So
Okay.
you may not have heard of this one, but it wasn't like it was a bad convention or anything. And Greenville is ripe for a proper convention, as South Carolina Comic-Con can attest. But they had issues with venue, and then like the third year they did it, they moved it out of Greenville up to Gaffney, which is like middle of nowhere, South Carolina.
And the guy who was running it, no, I won't even say anything, never mind.
There were some control issues.
Yeah.
With the person who was running it, like wanting to do everything. And then there's some things, like if you are running a convention, you need to understand that sometimes there are things that you should not control. For instance, I am great at social media, but I don't have time for it. Also great at social media, also doesn't have time for it because we're running 2 conventions now. Hence, we turn our social media over to people like Chloe. So like there are and programming. Shoot, like I ran the entire schedule without any help for the first 4 years of Ice and FireCon, and like this year I was begging for help because I knew, like, can I do it, and can I do it well? Sure. That doesn't mean I should be doing it by myself. Like again, Chloe helped take over the Snark and Grumpkin hunt, which got thrown in my lap. KK helped a lot with the tournament, which was, supposed to be, which in the past have been run by another organizer. Like, you have to know as an organizer of a convention, if you want to have a successful event, you have to know when to delegate. And for me, it's super fucking hard to delegate, but I know it has to be done, or I will, every year of Ice and FireCon will be like last year, where I was stuck doing way more than I could physically and mentally handle and had a miserable time. Not because the convention was bad, but because I was stressed and exhausted throughout the entire weekend. This year was the exact opposite. Like, I can't be on every panel. I shouldn't be on every panel. In the past, I was on every panel because I couldn't find people to delegate that to. Now I have those people. And I feel like there's too many people out there who try to start these conventions without realizing that they can't do it all. Like, you can be good at some things, you're never good at everything, ever.
Organization. I give you guys all props for all the things that you guys do, because I know good and well I wouldn't be able to do that, because it's like, holy crap, like, that's so much planning and everything. When I heard that whole Midwest Media Expo thing broke down, I just thought about Morgan, and I was like, oh my goodness, can you imagine how, like, the hotel canceling on you just in general and stuff, like planning
like
all this
the
stuff.
Week of the convention.
Right. Like, I just imagine, like, how much it takes to pull that all together, like how you guys pulled Ice and FireCon, is it correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
You guys, like, pulled that together and everything, like, and how much planning it takes to put that all together and stuff, too, and then, like, seeing them, like, have that just crash and burn in their face, and, but the thing is, the day after that happened and everything, they pulled together another convention called NotCon, which I gave them so much props for even continuing it on. John St. John still showed up and came. The Duke Nukem guy, he still came out for the convention, and a couple other guests still came out, and even
That's
feeling
so
bad
cool.
for what happened. and they had it up in Troy at Youmacon. I think it was at the old Youmacon Hotel where it used to be.
Location. Yep.
Yeah.
The first location.
Everybody felt bad. All these other cons like Penguin Con and a whole bunch of other things got together and said, "Here, we'll help out them. We'll send them this and the games and everything." And I'm just like, how can you guys plan this and so quickly and so in 2 days notice or so?
And I'll say this, like, kind of not on this in the exact same, situation as what they had happened with that Midwest MediaCon or whatever you called it. Last year for Ice and Fire Con, it was our first year at this new location, and there was some severe miscommunication between the organizer who was handling the venue at the time and the venue itself. And a big part of that was between when we booked the venue originally and when we got to the point where our final payment was due for the venue, they changed our contact twice.
Wow.
And not only did they change them twice, but the person, there was very little communication between them and us. And this was not our fault at all. We were, from what I, could see in like the back and forth emails and everything between the person who was handling our venue coordination at the time and whatnot, we were very clear, and there was never, I'd seen these, this communication before, and there was never any question on my part about what we were required to do in terms of filling rooms and everything. And we got to 2 weeks out from the convention, and they tried to tell us, well, you haven't filled, you told us you were going to book every room at the resort, and you haven't filled that.
Wow.
And you owe us thousands of dollars. And I'm not, trying to talk crap about them because I'm guessing it was kind of something similar to that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, it was like
that. Yeah. You have to be real freaking nasty when stuff like that happens. And this place, I put the fear of God in them. I am not the person you want to screw with when it comes to this, especially when we had written communication saying we weren't required to do this. Basically they were trying to tell us, you signed this contract that said this, which we hadn't. You were supposed to do this and you didn't. We never agreed to whatever they were saying. It was a lot of miscommunication, and they were trying to play it off like it was our fault when it wasn't. It was absolutely them trying to kind of be shitty, to be honest. Sneaky, yeah. And even if they had kind of signed a contract that said that they would do that they would meet an attrition rate, which is what it was probably called. Like you're going to say, I'm going to book 100 rooms. If you don't book at least 80% of those rooms, so say you book 75%, you are required to cover the cost for 5% of those rooms. And my guess is that's kind of similar to what they were doing. But the thing is, there are a lot of ways around that, and the hotel is almost always going to lose a lot more money than they're going to gain by canceling your event. And in our case, thankfully we had written communication saying that it was very obvious that we'd never agreed to what they were saying we agreed to. We hadn't signed any sort of contract that had an attrition rate on it or anything. But honestly, sometimes you have to get nasty. You have to be willing to get nasty and know that, sure, this may mean that we get crappier service at the convention, but
contract is a contract.
Yeah, well, and also it's worth it if the people who are coming to your convention still have a good time. Yeah. And it wasn't just I had to do it again this year, not for room attrition reasons, but for other reasons. You don't fuck with me. And you need, that's the thing, you need to have, like, when it comes to venue coordination, you absolutely need to have somebody who is willing to be that person, who is willing to put their foot down and be kind of a dick if they have to. Like, I don't even want to say bitch. Dick. I was a dick to those people, and they deserved it. Like, and if you don't have somebody who's willing to put their foot down in situations, even if maybe you're kind of in the wrong, like, in the end, if you cancel the entire event, it's going to hurt that hotel more than it's going to help them.
You should see the reviews on that hotel at this point, though. Like,
oh, I'm sure
they rated it down to like a half of a star. That's how much that hotel has gotten that much stuff, and they canceled the whole hotel, their Google reviews, their Yelp reviews, everything. You pissed off the wrong people and stuff. Their whole thing.
You don't fuck with nerds. You don't
No.
fuck with us.
Hi, yeah, Sheridan, Atlanta. Remember that time the Sheridan Atlanta tried to fuck with Dragon Con attendees and how well that went for them?
That
Wait,
happened?
was this
Room price.
Oh my god, yeah, I remember that, because I remember my friends were like,
Yeah, there are like 5 host hotels for Dragon Con, and the Sheridan turns around 6 months after people have booked their rooms and says, you owe us $20 more per night. Per night.
Y'all, it was a bloodbath, and it was amazing.
And not only did they owe them, because all these people had paid in full, which, by the way, is completely illegal to have to book a room, pay it in full, and then try to require them to pay $20 more per night. That is actually illegal.
They were totally trying to profit. They were trying to make money off it.
Oh, absolutely. And they didn't, because people, I mean, I don't know if they did. They may have. I don't know. Basically, people were fighting them. A whole ton of people canceled their rooms, which sucks, because I don't know what happened to the people who canceled their rooms. But like 2 months later, the Sheridan came back and was like, oh, okay, we'll give you guys the rate you originally agreed to. We're super cool, so we're doing this for you. It's like,
well played.
I would have said, hell out of here with that. I can't imagine that whole thing, but it's already expensive as ever to stay at these hotels in general and stuff. But when you have a right amount of people, like how we stayed in your guys' room for Dragon Con and everything and stuff, when you get the right amount of people, it's easy to do that and stuff to go by. And
It's also easy to fit 20 people on a balcony.
oh my god.
I think it was really easy. I think it was very easily and well done. So.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite memories ever. Like, whenever I tell people about Dragon Con, I was like, this one time, and Chloe was the balcony corral leader. Shut the fuck up.
Never let me lead
that
anything.
Security came into your room last year. Oh my gosh! I wanted to go down there to see what this is all about.
This is after you guys left. So this actually came up on the Dragon Con subreddit. Somebody was like, "Hey, has anybody ever crammed like a ton of people into their room?" Like,
I can see Karen's face now.
I thought they meant like a party or something. Apparently, they meant like trying to cram a bunch of people to sleep in the room. I don't know, for funsies, for one night, whatever. But like,
yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah,
know,
so
right?
last year, I didn't even say last year. I said like 1 year. I may or may not have put out a call to my friends saying we were having a party in our room. And we may or may not have been staying at a host hotel that may or may not have been not the Marriott, not the Sheridan, and not the Hilton, and not the and every single friend who showed up brought like 6 people.
Mm-hmm.
So we had like 50 people in our room.
And it was beautiful until the scary security guy, go the fuck home. And I was sitting there and I was drunk and I was like,
this is my home.
I live here. Oh, God.
I missed everything. I heard about it.
To be fair, they had every right to call security on us.
Yeah,
I was not mad at.
It was lit.
That was legit. Like,
it was that night was lit. Everyone was getting it, and it like the biggest part was it was Sunday night. Like, this is the end. Like, this is like, and I wasn't planning on partying that night. We saw what happened, anyways. But Like I wasn't planning because next morning we had to drive home, so I was like gonna be fine, whatever. And that was everybody on the balcony, and I was the leader, as Bekah said.
Yeah,
Oh
because
my
James like, oh,
gosh.
but like the best part was like, he's like, get the fuck out, get the fuck. So people started pouring out of our room, and out of the corner of my eye, I see people being herded onto the balcony, and they're like, shut the fuck up. And so like, draw the blinds, and they were like trying to draw the blinds. They're the ones that like you have to pull them or whatever. So it was like, I know it was like Chloe, and I think a bunch of other people I know.
Miguel.
Yeah, Miguel, Elena, was Medford out there? I don't fucking know.
Who cares?
A bunch of people. A bunch of people were out there, and the security guard was so scary. Like I don't know. I was very, very.
I'm pretty sure I was on the balcony. And it was my.
You were on the balcony with me.
Yeah, I was like, ah.
And
But
I was
anyway,
the leader.
But yeah,
What did he say? Like the security.
It was Brian.
he said that he was like, listen, you get 3 strikes. This is your 2.5 strike, and everybody needs to leave this room. So like all the people that were in the room had to leave, but we had like, it wasn't 20 people, but it was definitely at least 15 out on the balcony with the curtains shut. So like they were like, if you're not staying in this room, you have to leave. But so Bekah and Lauren and I think Scott, Aussie Scott, and Brian were like, we're all staying in this room. So all these other people, and there were also people shut in the bathroom too. There was somebody
Oh my god.
Yeah, that one guy who would not fucking leave our goddamn bathroom.
Yeah, at one point I had to be like, knock, knock. I have to pee, so you need to go get like sick out in the hallway or something. But yeah, no. So like, other than the people who were in our bathroom, shut in our bathroom, and like the 4 people in the room, Bekah, Lauren, Scott, and Brian, like everybody had to leave. But of course, we had like 15 people out on the balcony with the curtains closed. And I think at some point somebody asked if there was anybody on the balcony, and they were like, no.
No, we're so quiet though. So quiet. Like I was just like, and then they opened the doors after the security guy left, and they just like poured in. Like it was so funny.
2.5 strike.
Yeah.
Because
That's pretty bad.
Did we have another strike or no?
No, it was just bad enough that it was 2.5, like right then and there. Like that's how bad it was.
We had 0 strikes, but it was so bad that we had 2.5, and then it didn't matter after that because most people, even the people that were on the balcony, most of us
left. Yeah. We like finally left after that.
But
it was a fun adventure, and I love telling this story to everybody who will listen. Because I'm like, this is what Dragon Con is about. Fitting as many people as you can inside a balcony.
It was definitely one for the memory bank, that's for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we got sidetracked, but yeah, like Sheridan tried to do it with Dragon Con people, and obviously they weren't about to cancel Dragon Con's contract with them, but they still ended up getting, I guess screwed in a way because they screwed up. Somebody put their rates in wrong, and people who were supposed to be paying $229 a night or $219 a night were paying $199 a night. And they, in the end, like, even though they got a whole ton of people to pony up the extra cash immediately, they turned around and refunded it because they knew that they fucked up. And I don't know who, the thing is, I don't know who slapped their hand, because for months, they were like, no, we do what we want. It's the wrong number. It doesn't get. It's like fucking. I feel like whoever manages the Sheridan was handling this probably has an orange face and a toupee. But
on his shirt, toupee, looking no wife.
Oh my god! First of all, cosplay idea. Can somebody cosplay Trump as the Sheridan manager at Dragon Con this year? Please.
Oh my god.
Please.
That would be great.
So anyway, like the thing is, like, there are ways to fight this nonsense, but you really do have to be willing to be an asshole, like a little bit. Like, and even if you're right, sometimes it still involves being a little bit of an asshole. Like, let's be real. But anyway, so yeah, that was like the con market being oversaturated. It is. But I do think that at this point in time, it's kind of going to kill itself out, I guess, however you want to put that.
Anime cons for sure.
Yeah, and not just anime cons, but like all these little cons that keep cropping up, or even conventions that have been around for a few years but aren't keeping up with the times. And I'm not talking guests or whatever. I'm just talking like they don't. There was one in Florida like a few months ago that was like, no cosplay allowed. It's like, you can't even call yourself
that con isn't it wasn't like, it is stupid they said that, but I will devil's advocate them. It was a collectible show con. It wasn't
exactly.
like it was for like expensive collectibles, rare collectibles. It's not for cosplay. It was literally it's just they shouldn't have called it that. They shouldn't have called it a convention. That's all.
Exactly. They should have
done that. They should have said it was an expo.
Yes. And that's exactly what I was going to say. It's like,
yeah,
you can say you don't want cosplay, but you really, at this point, you can't really call it a
yeah.
But also, I mean, again, like even with the companies that have a ton of money, like Wizard World, they are not as big as they used to be. They've had to cancel tons of conventions. They've had to limit the number of conventions they're doing each year. So I think that in a way, conventions are kind of like getting weeded out, by that. Let's just hope it's the ones that deserve to get weeded out and not the ones that shouldn't go. Like I would, as much as I like can't justify going to Con-Versations now that I don't live within driving distance, it is a fucking amazing convention. It is so much fun. And if that convention goes away, like I'll be really disappointed, because they have a community and like an experience that not many. It's basically like a multi-fandom Ice and Fire Con.
Well, it's really actually. I was talking to somebody. I don't remember who it was. I think I actually might have been talking to Zach Baker, and he was saying that it's really struggling, and that makes me really sad. But I'm hoping that I get to go, because I didn't go this past year, but I'm hoping I get to go this coming February.
That's sad. I'll be sad if they die, because it's such a fun convention.
And it was my con virginity. Sorry.
Glad she specified.
We'll wrap this up. Does anybody have anything else they want to say? Or
No.
Goodbye.
Got everything you.
Goodbye forever.
Well,
Bye-bye.
thank you for watching, listening. I need to figure out how to get this up as a podcast, but thank you for watching / listening to our, convention webcast rant thing. I'll be back with another webcast, in a couple months. I'm trying to do these every 2 to 3 months now, and I'm probably going to stick with ones that are, focused around cons and or cosplay. So keep an eye out. And thank you guys for joining us. We've got Chloe and Izzy and Bekah. And I'll see you guys soon. And thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.